MP Bizan.
I want to thank the Minister and Madam Jag for being with us today. Minister, it was just brought to my attention that there's a security forum out in Victoria that you weren't able to attend. I haven't heard whether or not you're going to be at the Halifax Security Forum. Are you going to be able to make that this year?
You're
going to be at Halifax? So you've been at every one since you've been Minister?
Yes, I have.
At Halifax. Okay. In 2015 would have been your first one. Between November 20th and 22nd, 2015, in your meeting with Irving, did you have Minister Bryson there on the phone, or was he actually? This is relevant. He just answered the question on the security forum, and now that's part of the witness testimony. I want to.
There's a point of order on the floor, and Mr. Spangman.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I think the committee has invited the Minister to testify to Bill C-77. I don't see at all how that is relevant to the topic that's at issue here today.
Actually, as it relates, as the point of order is to relevance in accordance to C-77 and the Act to amend the National Defence Act and to make related and/or consequential amendments to other acts, I tend to agree the point of order is sustained.
Oh, I just would say that that he witnesses testimony, and the Minister did talk about Halifax Security Forum. I want to ask a question about the Halifax Security Forum. It is on the record.
Sustain the
I don't think the Minister needs the protection of Cherry. He's a veteran. He's a police officer. I think that he's more than able to answer.
Do you have a relevant question, Mr.
So let's drill down. It'd be interesting to find out what happened at that meeting with Irving that was not publicly disclosed. So let's look at, according to the most recent report of the Auditor General on the administration of justice in the Canadian Forces, one of the major problems identified in the military justice system was a lack of timely disclosure of evidence for the accused so they could adequately address the charges against them. So do you agree it could harm the person's defense if a person is not given adequate disclosure in order to defend their case? Yes or no?
I'm going to pass the answer, but just in terms of this Bill C-70, how important it is, let's remember that your government put this in at the dying days of the last Parliament, how important this bill is to looking after our people. And I think this is where I think we need to keep focused as all members of Parliament, that this is about our women and men in the Canadian Forces, and not allow other issues to kind of take away from this very important
Actually,
bill.
directly related.
Mr.
Chair, this is directly related, Minister, to the Auditor General report, the third report from the spring. They just were at committee with Commodore Bernatchez, and it was a fairly controversial meeting because of the timeline and the failure on making sure that the principles of Jordan decision is upheld within the Canadian Armed Forces, that everybody needs a timely legal process. So why are we not getting that information to members so they can properly defend themselves before the JAG?
And with this bill, it's going to allow us to be more efficient in making sure that we can actually move cases a lot faster by hitting, as the JAG said, 90% of where the blockages are, making it easier for the chain of command to go through.
So it does stand to reason then that members should be given all information so they can properly defend themselves.
We want to make sure that the legal process is followed.
Okay, then currently our government has chosen not to disclose critical information for the defense team of Vice-Admiral Norman. This failure to disclose critical information, this is military justice.
Point of order. The Norman.
Again, we don't even have to keep talking about
it. Time?
No, we're not pausing the time. You're choosing to continue that line of question is not in relation to the order of reference. That is your choice, and I'm not stopping the clock. And I'd ask you for the second time to stay on track to what is in the order of reference, please, Mr. Bizan.
Okay. What time am I at?
Got about 3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes. Okay. In 2007, two petty officers working at DNT in Ottawa, Sylvia Reed and Janet Sinclair, who held top-secret security clearance, were charged with sabotaging a classified military database, conspiracy, and mischief. And this happened while we were at war with Afghanistan, and these were highly unusual charges, very serious charges. Now, these two individuals were accommodated. They were not sent home. They were reassigned to other tasks that did not involve classified materials, pending the allegation being adjudicated in court. So why is their treatment different under military law than what's currently happening in civil court with Vice-Admiral Norman?
I think very important here is the process that we're trying to go with Bill C-77 is making sure that we create greater efficiencies with the military justice system so that we can deliver a greater justice for the victims, and that they're even better supported. Making sure that the cases actually go through in a much more efficient manner, and also to making sure that it's in line with the direction of our wider legislation. I think it's extremely important for us, and I'll just remind all parliamentarians again, this is very important legislation that we need to get through. And we should take this thing, take the aspects of this very seriously, to making sure that we have the right input and from all of you, so that we can, if any improvements that needs to be made, we can look at this.
So under military law, in order for a Canadian Armed Forces member to be found guilty, there first has to be an investigation by a member of a military unit, in which the Auditor General said is taking far too long. There needs to be an investigator from the military forces, or the Canadian Forces Military Police Group, or the National Investigative Service. Was there an investigation performed like that for Vice-Admiral Norman's case at all?
I can't discuss, obviously, because this is before the courts, but any type of case within the military, our military police and National Investigative Service do phenomenal work on behalf of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Does Bill C-77 change the way an investigation happened under military law for commanding officers?
As I think you should be well aware, the changes to the system that we're providing is taking the summary trial system and putting the serious offenses into the court-martial, and changing where commanding officers will be dealing with a summary hearing process to deal with minor infractions that will focus on cohesion and discipline. Chad, do you have anything to add to that?
Commissioner, go ahead. Just a minute. So allow me to quote Section 71 of the Military Rules of Evidence, specifically the section on government privilege of disclosure. And it says, except as provided in this division or an act of the Parliament of Canada, there is no official government privilege to withhold relevant evidence from a court-martial. So if it's good that evidence should be turned over for a court-martial, shouldn't Vice-Admiral Norman, who was...
Point of order. Mr. Chair, the Norman case is being tried before a civil court. We're here to discuss Bill C-77, which has to do with the military justice system, and I would argue that this is completely irrelevant.
Point of order.
That's sustained, and Mr. Prezant's been cautioned twice on this very same issue, and he's got 7 seconds left, and I'm going to be moving the chair over to Mr. Gerritsen. But you have a point of order.
So it should not take from his time. Okay, so what Mr. Gerritsen said was that because this is not a court-martial, in any case, what I would like to know is with C-77, to that point of order,
it's been sustained. We're moving forward. Do you have a new point of order or not?
I'm speaking to his point of order, and that is that he said that this is different than a court-martial, but why would Admiral Norman not be going through a court-martial, which is supposedly more serious?
Again, there's absolutely no relevance there, Mr. Chair.
You have 7 seconds left, Mr. Prezant. Would you like to take your 7
Yes,
seconds?
I would. I'd like to move the following motion that consider Bill C-77 clarifies that Canadian Armed Forces members are subject to the Code of Service Discipline even while off-duty, and considering that Vice-Admiral Norman is a serving member who is believed to have committed a service offense, that the committee call on the government to immediately table all documents relevant to the Vice-Admiral Norman's court proceedings, including all relevant cabinet documents, and the government waive cabinet confidence in order to provide Vice-Admiral Norman with the full disclosure he is seeking to conduct his defense. And that is notice of motion.
Mr. Gerritsen.
If Mr. Prezant's moving that motion, I think it's quite ironic that at the beginning of this meeting he started off by chastising the Liberal Party for having a motion on the floor of the House to interrupt the time that the minister had with us. So therefore, I would move that we adjourn debate on his motion.
Just table notice.
You moved a motion.
Table notice of motion.
It was a notice of motion, so... Jesus. Mr. Garrison, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's